This is Lil Mood, and I'm chairing the Service Committee for the Central Midlands Transit Authority. I'll call the meeting to order and ask Pam to determine whether we have a quorum.
Yes, ma'am. I'll call the roll now.
Okay.
Mr. Brennan? Ms. Terracio?
Here.
Mr. Fergus?
Here.
Ms. Gleaton? Ms. Mood?
Here.
Mr. Jenkins?
I'm here.
Ms. Robinson? Mr. Coon? Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
All right, thank you. Well, then we'll begin with our agenda. And I'll just take a moment of personal privilege before we start. I have all expectations that we'll be able to accomplish this agenda within an hour. And so I'm not anticipating a problem with that, but I do have a commitment at one that I feel obligated to keep. And so, Allison, you're the other executive committee member on this committee, and I'm wondering if we just can't avoid it, if you would take over and just close up the meeting for me if I have to just duck out at one. Could you do that?
I will try to do that. Yes.
Okay, but I think we're going to be fine. I don't think that'll be a problem. Thanks. So we'll move on to the adoption of the agenda. And before I entertain a motion on that, I want to make a couple of changes, or proposed changes. On 7D, the discussion of key personnel, I'm going to ask that we defer that until our next meeting. I've had some interim conversations and realized that there are discussions going on between our legal staff and RapDev on ways that other things that we need to address in the contract. And so while those are pending, I want to allow them to have more of those discussions before we try to make a decision on a process for key personnel. So I'd propose that we defer item 7D. And then the only other two things I'd like to make minor changes is really just something I should have noticed when the agenda was sent out, but didn't. And that is on item F, the uniforms. I think we completed that at the last meeting, so I don't think there's any further discussion that we need to have, and we can remove that from the agenda. And then I'd like for us to kind of fold together items 7F and 7H, which are really both updates on RapDev operations. And so rather than try to handle those as separate items, I think we can fold all of that content together. So that would mean just eliminating. The three changes would be deferring item 7D, eliminating item FF, and combining items 7F and 7H. Now, I'd entertain a motion to adopt the agenda with those changes, if you will. So moved. Mr. Fergus, is there a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Ratio, thank you. All in favor say aye. Aye. And opposed, any opposition? And if not, the agenda is adopted with the changes noted. Do we have anyone from the Midlands Transit Riders Association to speak to us today?
No, Madam Chair.
And Pam, is there anybody else from the public that you've heard from that wanted to be heard today?
No, ma'am.
No, okay. Well, then that takes us to the item 4, the adoption of the minutes from May 12th. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Move to approve. And is there a second?
Second.
And a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. And
Aye.
opposed? Hearing none opposed, then the minutes are adopted. On matters referred from the Board of Directors, we don't have any new ones in that, so we can move on. And item 6, the ridership report. I didn't see Mr. Harris. Yeah, there's Eric. Okay, turn it over to you, Eric.
All right, can you hear me well?
I can, thanks.
All right, so let me just make a small adjustment here. All right, so for the month of, we're actually presenting on the month of April. So we're always 1 month behind because we're still processing information for the month of May. But for the month of April, weekday service, simply put, ridership is down for majority of the routes. Routes like 96L, West Columbia, Casey, and Route 1, which is another West Columbia route. These routes are down nearly 80% in comparison to last month. And as a disclaimer, March and April is consistently our lowest performing month. So it's nothing to be alarmed about, but it is 2 routes that we want to keep a close eye on. On a positive end, we do have 1 route that has remained steady for Saturday level of service, which is Route 55 Sandhills. And it's not that this route is back to normal levels, but this route, it did not see a drop in performance from from March to April. As for Sunday level of service, we just want to pay close attention to Route 11, which is our Fairfield route, 42, which is Millwood, 45, Leesburg, Hazelwood, Route 32, North Main, Hardscrabble. These routes are falling in the 30% drop, between 30 and 40%, just down in ridership from March to April. But we just want to pay close attention to them. I don't think, again, it's something to be alarmed about because we expect for our numbers to be down around this time. And we will see where numbers are for next month, meaning looking at May. But outside of that, that concludes my report on my findings. But I'm open to answering any questions if you may have any.
Yes, Mr. Harris, let me ask you something.
Yes, sir.
When you say a 30% drop, you're saying that the ridership dropped 30% from paying, from free to paying. Is that correct?
That is correct. So from March to April, yes, we did see that much of a drop, 30%. So it is something that we have to factor into those numbers.
All right, but that's for the entire year we were free. So are we anticipating and comparing new ridership numbers to unverified free numbers?
So from when we start comparing April to May, this would give us more of a reflection of where we are. Comparing 1 month where we were charging and, in comparison to another, it'd probably be even more of a better sample size when we look at, May to June, because April, we didn't start charging fares until I believe April 12th.
Okay, but my question is this COMET data or the contractor's data that you're giving us?
This is data that has been received from.
Where's the verification done? That's what I'm asking. Where's the verification? Is this something the contractor pass on to you and you verify?
This is the data that we received from our contractor. If someone from RATP Dev would like to speak to the data, please do it this time.
Specifically on what portion of the data? I did not hear the full question. I apologize.
Now I'm being told that's your data.
And I think Mr. Fergus's question was just on the source of the ridership data that Mr. Harris is reporting on for April, and he was asking DEV's representative to step in and clarify that.
Yeah, that data is captured by our operators. Again, in the beginning of April, we were doing a free fare service, if I'm not mistaken. And of course, we ended up going to fare service. So it's a combination of the operators recording the information into GenFare, and then GenFare provides us the final report numbers to be able to provide to the comment.
And Mr. Bell, let me ask a question. Once the fares are reinstituted, is that counted differently? I mean, does that happen differently with a fare box or is the fare box used that just didn't any fare?
Yes, it actually aids a little bit more when you're collecting fares. When you're not collecting fares, the operators must record the information manually. When you're collecting fares, it helps, obviously, from an operator standpoint, when they're reviewing actual bus passes, things of that nature. And of course, if you recall, during the COVID, we were having operators record the ridership manually from passengers entering from the rear of the bus. And so that was another challenge in that standpoint. So now that we're doing fares and people are boarding at the front of the bus, those numbers should see a little bit different variation from before.
Did that answer your question, Mr. Fergus?
No, it didn't, for the simple reason if these are the contractor's number, that's who should be presenting it to us.
Well, that is a part of their report. What Eric's report is always on, just like what he's just done, is that analysis of any kind of things that stand out and looking at the data on the performance of particular routes, especially. So that's the distinction. But you're right. This is one of the things that RapDev will routinely reports on, and it is in their written report.
Thank you.
Anything else on that? Okay.
No.
Thank you, Eric. All right, so we'll move on to item 7A and a report on the passenger amenities. And I think Mr. McGee is with us. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, good. Thanks.
Yes. In the past month of May, we continued on design of multiple bus stops, shelters and benches. And so in the past month, we received the encroachment permit from the Army for the stop at their entrance that we've been waiting on for the past few months.
Good.
And under the unresolved issues, there was a stop that popped up where a property owner had previously placed a bench for Comet riders, but then they, in the past month or so, have started installing a fence around their property, and they reached out to the Comet for the Comet to provide a bench at that stop moving forward. So right now we're coordinating between the Comet and that property owner to see.
And can you tell us where that is?
It's stop 1224. It's on North Main.
Okay.
North Main at Confederate.
All right, and we have Ms. Davidson Ford's written report. So, do any of you have any questions for Mr. McGee, or from the written report or his report? Okay, I'm glad to get that Fort Jackson one finally done. That's been on our agenda for a while, hasn't it?
Yes.
That's good. All right. Well, hearing no further questions, thank you for that update, and we'll move to 7B, the service delivery update since May 2021. Mr. Bell.
Yes. Good morning. I should say good afternoon, Madam Chair. Last month we spoke at length in regards to the service delivery in regards to staffing, and I'm happy to announce that we are fully staffed right now. And we continue to, of course, bolster our rosters and adding more operators to our workforce. Right now, as of yesterday, the 7th, Monday, we had 5 new trainings start. And we are going to be holding our very first job fair on June 15th in collaboration with SC Works, which is a partner of America Job Center Network. Our new HR generalist has worked very closely with them in the past, and so we're excited to have her on board, and she's been able to coordinate this in a very short time that she's been with us. So we're looking forward to seeing those results pan out over the next few months. So from there, we actually had some changes to the actual markup for the operators, and originally I had reported that we would have them markup on May 25th. We ran into some challenges with the actual markup and had some discussions with representatives of the workforce, and we have decided to move that markup to take place on June 28th. That does not disrupt anything from a service delivery standpoint because we are fully staffed. This is more of an operational position for us, and we're looking forward to those results.
Okay. I continue to see how we've got a lot of overlap in our agenda. And so I think I'll just ask if any particular questions of Mr. Bell. We'll be hearing again from him in the overall operations report. And I think in future meetings, we probably need to fold this part of his report into that overall. But any questions for him specifically right now? I will say that I'm aware that the governor has now rescinded his emergency order. And so, but the COVID ad hoc committee will be meeting Friday. And so I'm sure that'll be the focus of their discussion. And so I'm not asking us to go into any of those questions for right now. And of course, all of the committee meetings are open meetings. And so any of you who want to hear a discussion specifically on what kind of changes we are making or anticipating in response to that, you can tune into the ad hoc committee meeting at 10 on Friday. Okay. All right. On the action plan regarding data analytics, we have Mr. Bell and Mr. Hubble and Ms. Gibbons. So I'll let you all decide how you want to handle that report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think I'll be most of this briefing on this topic, and to follow along with your theme of overlap. This really is service delivery improvements, and it's really twofold. Kind of update the committee on where we are, both from a technology perspective and an on-time performance perspective, the achievements that have occurred since the last briefing on the 26th of May. I
appreciate your recognizing that, because I think combining this with on-time performance would be very helpful. All right.
Thank you, ma'am. And then we'll discuss the next steps. On the technology achievements, this graphic I've used before kind of graphically represents at least the major technologies that are in existence today at the Comet and are used by either the Comet or RATP Dev, or are shared between the two of them. On the technology side, we finalized the development and agreement of the interim invoicing process to begin being used for services provided in April going forward, until we can reconcile what we're seeing as technology gaps and also technology overlaps and redundancy. We've reconciled some of the time point conflicts between two of the softwares, Trillium and Strategic Mapping, reconciled the identification alone of those time points. We found several time points throughout the system that had the same stop ID, so to speak. So they were causing conflicts. We've been able to identify those and correct those. And then we've kicked off the RATP Dev sponsored technologies and network assessment. RapDev has contracted with a firm called InMomentum, who is coming on board to look at these various technologies that are listed here. And again, as I said, looking for those potential gaps, as well as the potential redundancies and the cost of sustaining these technologies, so that we can conduct not only a technical analysis, but a value analysis as well. That project is kicking off. They'll be on site. I believe it's mid-June, third week of June. We should have the results of that analysis and inventory by sometime mid to late August. So those are the technology achievements in the last few weeks. On the on-time performance, and we briefed this information to the full board, I believe it was back on the 26th. We identified some discrepancies in the published public timetables, which is we're going to go through and be auditing all of those to make sure they're accurate. We've also, and this is the biggest, we've executed an annual subscription with a firm called Swiftly, who has very powerful software, and I'll show you an example of its output here in a second, that they actually take the real-time location data, or the GTFS as it's called, off of each vehicle and compare that to the scheduled running times and produce a very powerful report showing the gaps, showing where you're struggling to do what you said you were going to do in your schedules, and where you have opportunities to make adjustments. And we have done a preliminary runtime analysis with just a couple of days data, but I wanted to show the committee this is an example of the output. This list on the left side, this lists several routes. This is a screenshot. It does not list all of them, but it lists several routes. And the graphic here gives you a pretty quick point of reference, red being where you're not running on time and that you're running late. The green is where you're running within that time window, on time window. And then the orange is where you're actually, in some cases, running early. So you can see that there's opportunities on both sides of the spectrum here, so to speak. Times as we gather more and more operational data from each day, we'll run through this analysis and then work with Eric and Blake to assess where changes can be made. And the software allows you to make certain assumptions that if you add 10 minutes or 5 minutes to this route, does that 5 minutes now get you to that goal of 85% on-time performance? So it's a very powerful tool. We've worked with Swiftly. I've worked with Swiftly in the past, and I know RATP Dev has as well. And now the Comet has an annual subscription so that they can use this tool on an ongoing basis to do minor tweaks as field conditions, so to speak, as field conditions change. So we're real excited about the utilization of this new tool. And we think by mid to late August, we will have some pretty substantial data on the adjustments that need to be made based on your in-field running conditions. So the next steps, we're working on that OTP improvement action plan. We're finalizing that. We met this morning and making some adjustments to some of the tasks there from a time perspective. That'll be ready for publication, I would say, by the end of next week. We've completed we'll be completing the strategic mapping and Swiftly data validation, going through and cleansing the data so that we can identify those stop IDs that I referenced previously that were duplicated, and having to clean up some of that. We'll then do the schedule to empirical runtime analysis, and then confirm the results of that analysis, and then work with the Comet to look to see, given your current staffing levels, do you have the resources necessary to actually make these schedule adjustments? Is between Blake and Eric, can they actually complete these tasks within a reasonable period of time? If not, what are the other options to seek outside resources to help, at least with the first cut of this, so to speak? And then reconciling the results of that technology assessment that RapDev is sponsoring to see, does the Comet really need all of these various technologies, or are there redundancies where we could eliminate one or two of those technologies to get to that, what I see as all important single source of truth for data. And Madam Chair, that's all I have. I'd be prepared to entertain any questions.
Okay, Mr. Hubble, I would just say that I'm encouraged, more encouraged than I've been in a long time after both the conversations that we've had and your report to the board and then today's report, that we are really very close to resolving some of the issues that have been of most concern to us. And that is that while you're doing that technology analysis, that you're also doing the runtime analysis, which is another piece of that. Are the runtimes really workable, and how are those happening? And then also making sure that those then match what we're publishing to the public, and that analysis, I mean, and correcting any of our published route data, because even if we are doing what we think what we intend to do, if what the public has in their hands in terms of a schedule says something different, that creates an on-time performance problem for us in a different way. So I think that the fact that we're addressing all three components of what we need to be doing in terms of on-time performance is very encouraging to me. And then I'm sorry to take that time, but do any of the other committee members have questions or comments you want to make? Okay. Okay, well, thank you very much. Does anyone else have something they want to contribute, Mr. Bell, Tanisha, to Mr. Hubble's report? Okay, hearing none, our next item is 7E, reimagine the comet. And I simply put this on the agenda because the board did make a decision at its most recent meeting that they want our consultants to develop a proposed system for us that reflects their decision to on a 60% emphasis on ridership and a 40% emphasis on coverage. And so, Eric, if you will just tell us now, what happens now? There's really the next steps. What happens now?
Absolutely. So I guess as a result of the discussion with the board, they have asked for us to provide data. I think that came from Mr. Fergus as well, but we have put together some of the reports that we provided in the past to have that prepared to speak to that information for our next upcoming board meeting. But the next step is to work with Scudder. We will get with our major stakeholders and see, and as the routes are being designed, we can make sure that no service is being compromised in an area that we consider to be very, very essential, especially looking at population growth trends and things of that nature.
Okay, and if I'm not mistaken, one of the points that was made in the board meeting is that even though when what they will take to the public are, draft, potential changes, that none of that will go to the public without at least the board having that in their hands. So that, because, sometimes when you go out for public hearing on the kind of first draft of a system, the public takes that seriously, and they consider that those may be actual changes. And so we don't want board members to be blindsided with the public getting information that we don't yet have. Absolutely. Am I right on that?
Absolutely. So yeah, we will have a public engagement period, but prior to that period, we will bring that information to you to let us know what we're presenting. And from there, we give them an opportunity to comment back. And if we have to make any final adjustments, we would do so. And we present that again to the service committee and then the board, and we'll be set for implementation at that time.
Okay. Any questions from committee members? Well, thanks for that update, Eric.
Thank you.
All right, RapDev operations. I think we've pretty much covered the on-time performance. Mr. Bell, what about customer complaints? And let's see what else is on your list here. I think you already talked about staffing too. So I'll just leave it to you about customer complaints and anything else in your written report that you want to cover here.
No problem. Thank you, ma'am. For the month of May, we ended up finishing at 4.68 per 10,000 riders. That, of course, is exceeding the goal requirement of only 6. Basically, we saw a total of 55 customer complaints for the month of May versus 71 comparative to April. Out of the 55 complaints, 23 were categorized as reliability issues, which of course we continue to address. So that actually covers the complaint portion. We're doing fairly well there.
And how are we doing on following up on those complaints that you're receiving? Do you keeping track of them?
With the addition of our new QA manager, Ms. Wyman, who is a big stickler for responding to these complaints. The only challenges we run into at times is being able to get in contact with some of the customers. And I think some folks from the comment might be able to help me here with being able to address it. But our response time has dramatically improved with her coming on board and her detail in association with that.
Well, that sounds good. Any other comments or questions on the complaint? Okay. I guess the other big part of the of your written report is the fleet maintenance and that aspect of the operations.
Yeah, we have bus stop maintenance down here. That is still an ongoing effort, which seems to be producing the results that we want. Matter of fact, we've gotten some feedback thanking the team of Ronnie and Daniel, who are directly responsible for that for us. But they continue to do an outstanding job in cleaning the 35 required shelters on a daily basis. That is, again, one of those good highlights of this report on a monthly basis.
That does sound good. Okay. Any other points or any other questions from the committee members? Okay, then we thank you for that. And the final item then would be item 7G, and that's a Lucius Road Superstop update, and from Eric and Leroy. Are we hearing anything from DOT on that?
Yeah, so we're still waiting for information from SCDOT in regard to the traffic signal at the intersection. Our next steps in this project is to get with the City of Columbia, because there has been a delay in the implementation of this, getting the construction period started. But once we meet with the City of Columbia, we just want to hash out just what our timeline is now and in comparison to what their immediate needs are. And once we find out how we can all kind of mend together, then we'll figure out a path forward to make sure that we can continue to get this project on the road.
Okay, and so the plan still is that we won't initiate any construction until we have the confirmation from DOT about the traffic control.
That is correct. So we have not issued the notice to proceed as of today. I believe we're definitely around 60 days behind schedule. We are running the risk of the project increasing. So we're trying to stay, again, fiscally responsible in our approaches. But that's why we want to make sure we go to the City of Columbia, see if there's any way that we can circumvent some of this process to make sure everyone is satisfied with our next steps.
Yeah, because the last thing we want to do is to develop something and then it won't work because the buses can't get out into the road with no traffic signal. Yeah,
absolutely.
So that would be a false economy if we were investing in that. All right. Any questions for Eric about the Superstop?
Yes, I have one question. Okay. I'd like to know if the communities surrounding the Superstop notified of our intention.
Yes, they are aware, and we are in the process of getting back in touch with the neighborhood president and Earlwood Homeowner Association, I believe. But basically, we're going to get with them and make sure they are abreast before we continue with the process as well. And they'll be a part of the discussion with the City of Columbia.
Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Does anyone have anything else that needs to come before the committee at this point? Well, if not, I thank you. We might have set a record, but if not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So move, is there a second?
A second.
Second, and all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed, no. Hearing no objection, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.